business coach and digital influencer MdShekSadi. Sadi. Our mission is to bring our national businessmen to multinational level by international business education, video case study, framework, formula, and many more than that. For that reason and for that achieving goal, we made this panel discussion. And topic of this panel discussion is ethical leadership. For that reason, I had some successful leaders. At first, I would like to introduce our first panel speaker, who is a professional banker with 1 decade of experience, currently serving Mercantile Bank as a first assistant vice president, graduated from University of Dhaka on economics. He is a national level award winner banker. He is a treasurer of Dhaka Toastmasters Club. With a big round of applause, please welcome Mr. MD Rajan Mia. Sir.
Yes, Sadi bhai, thank you very much.
Sir Rajan Mia, do you want to deliver some words for us?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sadi bhai, for arranging such a beautiful session on a very timely topic. Because as you mentioned, you want to do something special, because I must say, because your mission is to bring our entrepreneur as international level. So thank you very much for attending that. And in my query session, obviously, I would deliver my specific answer.
Now,
how about you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sir Mohammad Rajan Mia. Now, I would like to introduce our second panel speaker, who has an excessive SDLC skill in system analysis, planning, design, test planning and execution, integration and deployment, designer. Now the head of technology of T&ET. He is a certified Scrum professional, that means CSP. He is Vice President Public Relations of Bangladeshi Toastmasters Club. With a big round of applause, please welcome Mr. Devashish Bhome.
Thank you, Shek Sadi bhai. I'm pleased to be here with this latest topics that's going on about ethical leadership, which is very important nowadays, even for our country. It's going important. Thank you.
Thanks a bunch, Sir Devashish Bhome. Now, time to introduce our last panel speaker, who is an experienced HR professional with 8 years of corporate and development organization, experience working with both local and multinational organizations. Currently, he is working in BRAC Leadership Academy as a manager and also working as a soft skill facilitator. He is also working as a corporate trainer and truly passionate about speaking and want to create impact in the speaking industry. And he is member of Dhaka North Toastmasters Club. With a big round of applause, please welcome Mr. Muhammad Abdul Momin Shoshi.
Thank you, Sadi bhai, for having me here. And I think that the topic that you have selected is a very timely one. And we can really add value here. And we need to convey some messages to the industry that we need to practice the ethical leadership. And, so since you have brought so many experts here, they'll be able to add value here. I think that's a nice arrangement. Thank you again.
Thanks a bunch, sir, for your nice introduction and also about your concern about the topic. So big round of applause for all of you. So all of our panel speakers, we have some topic. Already I said we have a selected topic, that is ethical leadership. Ethical leadership, what is it? I have some specific questions about that, and I will ask those questions to all of you. And I'm expecting wonderful answers from all of you. So at first, I would like to ask a question. Our first panel speaker, Mr. Mohammad Rajan Mia. Sir, my first question is that to you. Can you please identify the key elements of ethical leadership? Can you please identify the key elements of ethical leadership? Over to you, sir. Mr. Rajan Mia.
Thank you. Thank you, just Mr. Sadi bhai. It's a nice question. Obviously, I should say, if I want to, if I want to say about ethical leadership, I would start from the leadership perspective. What is a leadership? Who is the real leader? Leadership, it indicates that you would lead your team, you would lead your company, or whatever the position you are from the front, and you must have to have that quality to give encouragement, to give some sort of strength to your team so that they can work. So by what you can achieve that? To strengthen your team's mental position, you have to have some sort of quality in terms of ethical point of view, I think. And what should be that quality? At first, I think you should be honest to your team, and you must have to show justice to your team, as well as other quality must be you have to respect others. It may be your regulator, it may be your customer, it may be obviously it may be your team member or other. It may be other also. If I define all party in a single word, that is called stakeholder. You have to be respectful to your stakeholders. And beside that, you must have to be transparent. You must have to be accountable as well. And all these points are the very important part of ethical leadership. And if you can attain those qualities, only then you'd be able to attain that quality, that is ethical leadership. And by that pursuit, you can motivate your team. Over to you, Sadibai.
Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful, really wonderful description about that first question. Now I have a second question, and I have a second question to our second panel speaker, Devashish Bhomik. Sir, my question is that to you. Can you demonstrate an understanding of moral leadership? Can you demonstrate an understanding of moral leadership? Over to you, sir, Mr. Devashish Bhomik.
Actually, modern leadership is providing values or meaning for people to live by. So it is about providing inspiration to act and motivation to hold oneself accountable to do the work. When you don't see someone stepping up to provide purpose and doing what is best for the greater good, you need to step up. That is about moral leadership. Actually, we know all kind of leadership is responsibility. It is a power. As like the author told Toni Morrison, if you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. Your best self is when you use your power to lead others. Thank you. What you say?
Thank you very much, sir, for your really wonderful. We got some important thing. Providing inspiration and ethical leadership is a power. At last, we will sum up all of things. Thank you very much for a wonderful answer. Now, I would like to invite our third panel speaker. Mr. Shoshi, sir. I have a question to you. I have a question to you, sir. Please recognize and address the impact of ethical leadership. Please recognize and address the impact of ethical leadership. Sir, Mr. Shoshi.
All right. Thank you. I think Mr. Rajan Mia, he has mentioned a few elements of empathical leadership. Ethical leadership. Right? So we already know what are the elements, and when you have that elements, we can practice that ethical leadership. So I'll be telling a little about the impact of ethical leadership. What happens when you practice, or when the leaders practice ethical leadership? I think the main reason or the core reason should be to attain the trustworthiness or the credibility, of the leaders. Why do we listen to the leaders? Why the supervisors listen to their supervisors? Why do the deputy managers listen to their managers? Because they have to trust. They trust, that's why they listen to their managers. They trust, that's why they listen to their leaders. So having that trustworthiness or credibility is a very, very important thing to get the job done, to get the execution done. So that's very important thing. I think that's one of the main impact of ethical leadership. And when you practice that, you will be able to do so many things, and you will get your job done. So I think that's truly the core purpose of ethical leadership.
Thank you very much, sir, for your really wonderful answer of that question. Now I have another question for our first panel speaker. My fourth question for our first panel speaker, Mr. Rajan Mia, for you. And my question is that, could you demonstrate, please, a clear understanding of the value of ethics? Could you demonstrate, please, a clear understanding of the value of ethics? Sir, Mr. Rajan Mia.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Sadi bhai. Look, value of ethics. If I start with terminology in economics, there is a word naming sustainable development. Many countries, many economies have experienced development. If you are interested to have, say for example, Nigeria is a very good case study regarding sustainable development. Just years back, they made significant growth in their economy, but they didn't sustain. Why it is not sustained? Because it was not based on some sort of basic strength, the economy. So whenever you get that basic strength, whenever your process, your system are ethical, I believe. So to attain sustainable development, you must have to practice sustainable, ethical business or ethical strategy or whatever the way you follow. It should be based on ethical point of view. Only then your development, your progress, whatever you make, would be sustainable. So my point is that if you want to progress in a sustainable way, please be fixed on ethical practice of your business or your service, whatever the. Over to you, Sadi bhai.
Thank you very much for your wonderful answer, sir. And already you gave the example about that. That is Nigeria. That is really wonderful example for us. Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful answer. Now I would like to invite again our second panel speaker, Mr. Debashish Bhumik, sir. I have a question to you again, and my question is that to you: identify the steps and considerations. Identify the steps and considerations involved in making difficult decisions. Identify the steps and considerations involved in making difficult decisions. Over to you, Sir Debashish Bhumik.
So about making difficult decisions that actually as a leader we have to take every day, every moment. The first step, I think, it should be the identify the decision. It is very important to realize that you need to make a decision and why this decision is important. Number 2 step is to gather relevant information to make that decision. Number 3 step should be identify the alternatives. So when you are going to make some decision, you should choose what alternatives do you have. Next step, by step 4, I can say, would be weigh the evidence. So all the information and emotions, to imagine what it would be like. You need to weigh which things you will count to take your decision. Step 5 should be, after weighing all the evidence and identifying the alternatives, you should choose among the alternatives you have in your hand. So by this time you will be ready to take the decision. So you have to take some action on regard to the decision. And last step should be, you should review your decision and your consequences. So in the final step, consider the results of your decision and evaluate whether or not it has resolved the need you identified in the first step. If the decision has not met the identified need, you may want to repeat these steps, certain of these steps again and again. Thank you, Sadi bhai.
Thank you very much, Devashish Bhumik sir, for your really wonderful answer, and we got some steps how we can use ethical leadership in every leadership process, in every organization, by following steps, some steps you clear to us. Thank you very much for that. Now I have a question to you, sir, Mr. Shoshi, and my question is that to you, sir. Do you think ethical leadership has made difficult decisions? Sir, do you think ethical leadership has made difficult decisions? Over to you. Sir, Mr. Shoshi Momin.
Right. So if I understand your question clearly, so the question is, do you think the ethical leadership creates any problem to take any decision, right?
Right.
Okay. I want to believe that ethical leadership should not create any problem to make any decision. I want to believe that, but the reality is a bit different because, I know from my professional experience, there are organizations who are extremely self-driven, and they're less employee-centric. And I have seen some organizations, or I heard about some organizations. So they think that being ethical means, losing yourself in the end, but that's not actually true. Because being ethical doesn't actually mean that you will lose yourself and you will lose your revenue. They probably think that when you become ethical, you become, pretty much extremely employee-centric, and you might have to trade off between employee's stake and employer's stake. But maybe you'll be able to earn some extra sales for the short term if you go that way, but in the long run, you will definitely struggle. So I think being ethical is the best policy here. And the organizations who practice ethical leadership, they actually win the long run. And they do not look for the short-term sales. They look for the long-term sales. And they always look for employee welfare. They always look for the ethical structure, the transparency everywhere. And this is why, the employee or the people who work under that organization, they trust their management, they trust their leaders, and they give their best. They give the heart and soul for that organizations. And when the employees believe their management, trust their organizations, they will definitely, give their best to ensure that extra sells. So in the end, in the long run, you will be the winner. So I'll go back to my first point, that I want to believe that ethical leadership is the best policy, and it should not create any problem to make any solid decisions. So thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your really wonderful answer with some examples. Thank you very much. So I have a last question for all of our panel speakers. Just I want that answer within 3 lines, only within 3 lines. So my last question to our first panel speaker, Mr. Mohammad Rajul Mia. Sir, how Bangladeshi entrepreneurs introduce ethical leadership in their business? How Bangladeshi entrepreneurs introduce ethical leadership in their business? Just 2 points or 3 points. Just 2 or 3 points. Sir, unmute yourself. Sir, unmute yourself.
Bangladeshi entrepreneurs, obviously, they can introduce ethical practice in their business by maintaining 3 points: regulator, customer as well as to the society. How they're regulated? By being compliant to the regulator, by being honest to its customer, and to the society. Obviously, every business entrepreneur have this their responsibility to the society because they are doing business in the society. So to do something meaningful, I mean, if I say their corporate social responsibility, I'm saying that by complying that, they can introduce ethical practice in their organization.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So same question to you, sir. Debashish Bhomik, sir. Just 3 points, sir. You have only 30 minutes, 30 seconds, sir.
Actually, ethical leadership is a tremendous growing interest as public confidence in organizational leaders continues to decline in Bangladesh. So recently we can see entrepreneurs trying to introducing ethical leadership by building trust among employees and consumers and ensuring open communication so that everything is transparent, and also sharing the ownership of organizational values and emphasizing on commitment in promoting non-economic social values. So leaders are taking actions and showing consumers and other stakeholders that they are actively engaged with ethical issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, Shoshi Mumin, I have the same question to you. How Bangladeshi entrepreneurs introduce ethical leadership in their business? Just
Right.
3
So
points,
how
sir.
Bangladeshi entrepreneurs
Introduce ethical leadership in their business. Just 3 points, sir. You have only 30 seconds.
All right, so 3 points. Okay, I'll just give 3 points. I think they can start practicing with listening and practicing feedback. The first point is the leaders should listen. Leaders always want to talk. There are leaders who would always love to talk, but listening is very, very important. And listening is a very, very coveted skill. The leaders have to listen to their employees, with their stakeholders, and they have to have that mindset to receive feedback. Leaders think that they have to give feedback, but simultaneously they have to think that the receiving feedback is also very important for their performance and how they're doing. You know, what the wrong they're making, what mistakes they're making, or what improvement areas they have. So when the leaders receive feedback from their employees or from their stakeholders, they will know that there are certain improvement areas, and they have to minimize that gap. And if there's anything that's unethical, they have to look there and they have to just mend that. That's the first thing. And the second thing I'd say, that's practice empathy. Empathy is a big word, but when you practice empathy, you cover a lot of things. Empathy, when you are empathic to your stakeholders and employees, you understand their context, you understand the total situation they're in. If you consider the current context, COVID context, and in this context, if you ask the leaders to be ethical, that means they have to listen, they have to understand the context of their employees, that what situation they're in. They have some health issues, they have some family issues, and if you force them to work with a lot of workloads, that would be very unethical, because you have to look after their families as well. You have to look after their overall welfare as well, being a leader. So the second point is you have to practice empathy. And the third point is there are incidents that leaders walk away from the responsibilities. Leaders walk away from the challenges. You have to embrace the challenges. Don't just say that, yeah, there are people who will take the challenges and who will get the job done, who will do all sort of executions. No, that's not ethical leadership. You have to be involved in that total work, total execution, total, the job process. So when you are totally involved, when you lead by example, when you show them this is the right way, and when you don't fear to take that challenge and all that responsibility, you show that that's the ethical leadership. And people will be inspired by your leadership, that you are leading by example. You don't talk the talk, you just walk the talk, right? You practice what you preach. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, all of you. I would like to sum up. I would like to sum up our first panel speaker, what he said. Sir, Mr. Rajanne, he said about the word that is honest is everything. Honesty is everything. And also he said value of ethics. As ethical leadership, we have to practice value of ethics. And also he gave the example about the Nigeria. They did very well for their economic situation, but that didn't sustain because they were not ethical about the leadership. And also he said mentioned 3 points about the Bangladeshi entrepreneurs. for Bangladeshi entrepreneurs, how they introduce ethical leadership. Number one is that regulator. Number two is that they should focus on customers, and also they should think about the society. And if we will focus on our Devashish Bhumik sir, he mentioned something. At first, he mentioned one thing, that is providing inspiration. Ethical leadership is providing inspiration to us, and also ethical leadership is a power. When a leader is developing ethical leadership on him, then he will get the power. And also he mentioned few steps, especially he mentioned very impressive steps. In that steps he said identify alternatives and choose among the alternatives, and finally he said from that alternatives you can take your final decision. And about the last question, how Bangladeshi entrepreneurs introduce ethical leadership, he said about the building trust. A leader should build trust in his employees and open communication. He should make open communication to all of us. And also he said ethical leader, or a leader who has ethical values, he should share values with all of his employees and all of customers. And our last panel speaker, Mr. Shoshi Momin, he said, having trust, ordinance, then your job will be done. And also he said, ethical leadership is the best policy. I liked it very much. Ethical leadership is the best policy. And for our last question, how Bangladeshi entrepreneurs introduce ethical leadership in their business, he said 3 points, especially listen. Listen more than you say or you leave. Then you can understand the need of customers and also the need of your employees. And also practice empathy. That means you have to show some empathy to your customers on all of this, and you have to practice in your mind. Then you can do your work with more responsibility. And also he said a very important and interesting point, that is, don't walk away from challenges. So with that note, I would like to say thank you very much to all of our leaders.